The cursor blinks on line 847 of the security patch I've been writing for the past 4 hours. Rain streaks down the floor-to-ceiling windows of our 23rd floor office, each drop catching the glow of the city lights below. It's past 9 p.m., and the open floor plan stretches empty around me except for the distant hum of servers in the data center. I lean back in my worn Aeron chair, one of the few remnants from the David Keller era, and crack my knuckles. The patch addresses a critical vulnerability in our authentication framework, the same framework I designed and built from scratch 2 years ago. The same framework that now powers every login, every API call, every data sync across our entire platform. Still here, Jordan? I turn to see Sienna Walsh standing behind me, her designer heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. She's 24, blonde, and has the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. Her badge reads Strategic Intern, a title that appeared on the org chart the day after her mother became our new CTO. Just finishing up this security patch, I say, gesturing to my screen. Should be deployed by morning. She glances at my monitor, her expression shifting to one of barely concealed disdain. Right. Well, maybe you should save some of that energy for your real job. Go back to your fantasy football, boy. The words hang in the air like smoke. Fantasy football. Boy. I'm 27 years old with a master's in computer science from MIT and 6 patents pending with the USPTO. I built the backbone that keeps this company running. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I can see Sienna's mother, Margaret Walsh, gesturing animatedly to a group of executives. Margaret is everything you'd expect from a former McKinsey consultant. Sharp blazer, perfect hair, the kind of presentation skills that make board members nod and write checks. She arrived 3 months ago with promises of operational excellence and strategic realignment. Sienna joins them in the conference room, and I watch as mother and daughter share a laugh. The glass walls let me see everything but hear nothing. It's the perfect metaphor for my place in this company now, visible but voiceless. I save my work and close the laptop. The patch can wait until tomorrow. As I gather my things, clarity clicks into place with the precision of a deadbolt sliding home. I'm not their free engine anymore. The next morning brings the familiar ritual of coffee and code reviews. But something feels different. The energy in the office has shifted, like the atmospheric pressure drop before a storm. I've been here since the beginning, back when David Keller ran engineering from a cramped office with whiteboards covering every wall. Those were the days when merit mattered more than pedigree, when the best idea won regardless of who proposed it. Keller built this place on a simple principle. Ship great products, treat people fairly, and profits follow. Then the VCs came calling with their growth metrics and scalability concerns. Keller stepped back to focus on vision, which in Silicon Valley parlance means you're being managed out. Margaret Walsh stepped in with her consultant's playbook and her daughter's internship. Now I sit at my desk, scanning through my email, and notice the gaps. The weekly architecture review meeting, missing from my calendar. The product roadmap planning session, no invite. The quarterly all-hands prep meeting. Somehow, I didn't make the list. Oversight, the responses claim when I ask. Must have been a sync issue. But these aren't random omissions. They're surgical strikes, precise cuts designed to slowly separate me from the decision-making process. I pull up our internal documentation system and search for the authentication framework specs I wrote last year. The documents are there, but my name has been scrubbed from the author fields. Version history shows the changes. Updated by system administrator on the same day Margaret started. My phone buzzes with a new email notification. The subject line makes my stomach clench. Team restructuring. Exciting opportunities ahead. I stare at the unopened message. My finger hovers over the trackpad, but I don't click. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again. They want my code without me. Margaret's corner office represents everything the old Keller culture wasn't. Expensive furniture, motivational posters about synergy and disruption, and a glass desk that reflects the city skyline. She gestures for me to sit in one of the uncomfortable modern chairs that seem designed to keep meetings short. Jordan, thank you for coming. Her smile is perfectly calibrated, the kind they teach in executive coaching seminars. I wanted to discuss some exciting developments in your role. Exciting how? Well, as the company scales, we need to think strategically about our human capital allocation. She opens a leather portfolio and slides a document across the glass. Surface. We're creating new opportunities for technical contributors to focus on what they do best, deep technical work. I scan the first page. It's a role description for senior individual contributor, which in corporate speak means they're demoting me while trying to make it sound like a promotion. No direct reports, no architectural decisions, no strategic planning, just coding in whatever corner they assign me. This seems like a step backward, I say. On the contrary, it's a step toward expertise. We're bringing in specialized leadership for the platform architecture. People with enterprise experience who can scale our systems to the next level. I am the platform architecture. I designed every core component. Margaret's smile flickers for just a moment. And you've done excellent work. But as we mature as an organization, we need to think about intellectual property stewardship. Your innovations have been valuable, but they were created during your employment here, which means they belong to the company. The temperature in the room seems to drop. My patents were filed before the IP assignment clause was added to employment contracts. Were they? Our legal team will need to review that. She closes the portfolio. In any case, we're confident this new role will be a great fit for your skills. My phone buzzes. Another email from HR. Updated employment agreement. Please sign by EOD. I stand up without reading it. I'll need some time to think this over. Of course. Take all the time you need. Well, until end of business today. I leave the agreement unsigned on her glass desk. Back at my desk, I open a terminal and begin the most important code review of my career, auditing the boundary between what's mine and what's theirs. The authentication framework sits at the heart of everything. Every user login, every API call, every database connection flows through my code. But here's what they don't understand. The framework was designed to authenticate against my privately hosted service. Not for secrecy or sabotage, but because I needed external identity providers for testing, and the company's infrastructure team couldn't provision them fast enough. So I built my own. OAuth 2.0 compliant, OIDC certified, running on servers I pay for with my own credit card. The company's platform treats it like any other identity provider. It just happens to be mine. I trace through the dependencies. Authentication enables authorization. Authorization enables data access. Data access enables everything else. Remove the authentication layer, and the entire platform becomes unusable. My Git logs tell the story of the last 3 months. Sienna Walsh has cloned 17 repositories, including the core authentication codebase. Margaret has been CC'd on every architecture review document. The new specialized leadership has been downloading system diagrams and database schemas. They're not just sidelining me, they're preparing to erase me. I find the smoking gun in an email thread I wasn't supposed to see, forwarded by mistake from our general counsel to the engineering team. The subject line? Minimizing developer leverage. Action items. The date stamp shows it was sent on Margaret's second day. They've been planning this harvest since the moment she walked through the door. I close my laptop and reach for my phone. Time to call Thomas Garrett. Thomas Garrett answers on the second ring, his voice carrying the calm precision of a lawyer who's navigated every variation of corporate warfare. We've worked together for 3 years on patent applications, and I've learned that his $800 hourly rate buys more than legal advice. It buys strategic thinking that sees around corners. Jordan, good to hear from you. Though given the timing, I suspect this isn't about filing another patent. Not exactly. I walk him through the situation methodically. Margaret's arrival and immediate power consolidation, the systematic documentation scrubbing, Sienna's access to my repositories, the team restructuring email I haven't opened, and today's glass desk conversation about IP ownership. Thomas listens without interruption, but I can hear him typing, taking notes with the kind of precision that wins court cases. When I finish, there's a pause that stretches long enough for me to wonder if the call dropped. Let me make sure I understand the technical architecture, he finally says. Their platform authenticates users through your privately hosted service? Correct. OAuth 2.0 flow, OIDC compliance, running on AWS instances under my personal account. I built it that way because their infrastructure team couldn't provision external identity providers fast enough for development testing. And this authentication service, it's not just a gateway, it's core to their business logic. I pull up the system architecture diagram on my screen. Everything flows through it. User sessions, API authorization, database access controls, inter-service communication, remove authentication, and their platform becomes a collection of disconnected services that can't talk to each other. Fascinating. His tone shifts to the analytical mode I've heard when he dissects patent claims for prior art. And your patents, when were they filed relative to your employment agreement? First filing was 18 months before I started at Zephrstone. The comprehensive suite was completed 6 months before they added IP assignment clauses to new employee contracts. Do you have the USPTO receipts? Electronic filing confirmations, fee payment records, and patent prosecution history. Everything time-stamped and archived. Thomas goes quiet again, but this time I can hear the rapid clicking of his keyboard. He's building the legal framework in real time, mapping statutes and case law against the facts I've provided. Jordan, in 15 years of IP litigation, I've rarely seen a case this clean-cut. Your patents predate their employment IP claims by a defensible margin. Your authentication service runs on infrastructure you own and pay for. Their platform depends entirely on your continued cooperation for basic functionality. What does that mean in practical terms? It means they're operating under an implied license to use your patented technology, and implied licenses can be revoked with proper notice. They have no written agreement, no license fees, no legal framework that compels you to provide service. I lean back in my chair, staring at the city lights beyond my apartment window. What would revocation look like? Legally, a cease and desist letter delivered by courier, stating that you're revoking their implied license to use your patented authentication methods, effective immediately, followed by disabling access to your privately hosted service. And practically, Thomas's voice takes on the tone of a chess grandmaster explaining a forced checkmate sequence. Their login systems fail within minutes. API calls start returning 401 and 403 errors as authorization tokens become unverifiable. Database connections time out as services can't authenticate their access credentials. The mobile app crashes on startup. The web platform displays error pages instead of user dashboards. How long would it take them to build a replacement? Months, maybe a year if they want to avoid patent infringement. They'd need to architect around your innovations, obtain their own OAuth certification, rebuild the risk-scoring algorithms from scratch, and that's assuming they understand the business logic well enough to replicate it. I think about the emergency contractors they'd hired, burning $200,000 in 48 hours with nothing to show for it. They've already tried, failed spectacularly. Of course they did. You can't reverse engineer institutional knowledge in a weekend, especially when the person who built it is no longer cooperating. My phone buzzes with another missed call from Margaret's office, fourth one in the past hour. Thomas, what's the legal exposure if I go through with this? For you? Minimal to non-existent. You're exercising legitimate patent rights and discontinuing a service you provide at your own expense. For them, they'd have grounds for a lawsuit only if they could prove you acted in bad faith, which becomes impossible when they have documented evidence of trying to marginalize you and steal your IP. The email about minimizing developer leverage? That's Exhibit A in your defense if they're foolish enough to pursue litigation. It demonstrates premeditation on their part to appropriate your work without compensation. I open my laptop and pull up the authentication service control panel. Green status indicators across every metric, serving requests for a platform that's about to betray me. If I do this, there's no going back. Jordan, there's already no going back. They've made their intentions clear. The only question is whether you're going to let them harvest your work quietly or whether you're going to protect your intellectual property rights. Through my apartment window, I can see the Zephrstone office building 12 blocks away. Lights, still burning in the corner offices where Margaret and Sienna are probably planning my professional funeral. Can you draft the cease and desist by morning? I can have it ready by 10 a.m. courier delivery to their office with electronic copies to their legal counsel. Everything documented, time-stamped, and legally bulletproof. And after I revoke access? After you revoke access, you wait. Document everything, preserve all evidence, and let them make the next move. My guess is they'll be too busy dealing with system failures to pursue legal action, but if they do, we'll be ready. I close the laptop and look out at the city skyline one more time. Tomorrow morning, everything changes. Draft the letter, Thomas. It's time to take my keys back. I arrive at the office early, coffee in hand and laptop bag slung over my shoulder. The pre-dawn quiet gives me space to think, to prepare for what comes next. First, I rotate all the encryption keys on my authentication service and generate new API tokens. Standard security practice, completely defensible if anyone asks. Then I draft a maintenance notification email. Subject: scheduled maintenance, external authentication service time, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. PST impact. Brief interruption to login services. The email goes out at 9:30 a.m., giving everyone 90 minutes. Notice, professional courtesy, even for the people planning to destroy my career. At exactly 10 a.m., a courier in a brown uniform walks through our lobby and hands an envelope to the receptionist. She signs for it and walks it upstairs to Margaret's office. Through the glass walls, I can see the moment Margaret opens it. Her face goes from confused to concerned to something approaching panic. Sienna appears at her mother's side, reading over her shoulder. They both look in my direction, but I'm focused on my terminal, making final preparations for the maintenance window. My phone rings. Margaret's extension. "Jordan, can you come to my office? We need to discuss something urgent." I glance at the clock. 10:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the maintenance window begins. "Sorry, I'm busy with the maintenance window I announced this morning. Perhaps this afternoon?" I can hear the strain in her voice. This can't wait. The maintenance can't wait either. System reliability is my top priority. I hang up and close my laptop. Time to take my keys and go home. At exactly 11 a.m. from my apartment 12 blocks away, I disable the authentication endpoint that powers their entire platform. The effect is immediate and cascading. Login attempts start failing within seconds, returning HTTP 401 errors that propagate through every service. API calls begin timing out as connection pools exhaust themselves trying to reach an unreachable authentication server. The collaboration platform goes dark, the customer portal becomes inaccessible, and the mobile app crashes on startup. My phone starts ringing. Margaret's number, then Sienna's, then the head of operations. I let them all go to voicemail while I monitor the cascade of failures through my browser. Their status page, once a wall of reassuring green indicators, now flashes red across every service category. The internal Slack workspace, what I can still see of it, erupts with messages from engineers trying to understand what's happening. At 11:23 a.m., my apartment buzzer rings. I open the intercom to hear Margaret's voice, tight with barely controlled fury. "Jordan, we need to talk. Now. I'm not available for meetings today. This is sabotage. This is patent protection. I revoked unauthorized access to my intellectual property, as outlined in the cease and desist letter you received this morning." There's a long pause. "You can't do this." "I can, and I did. My patents, my servers, my choice." Through the building's glass door, I can see Margaret and Sienna standing on the sidewalk, Sienna gesticulating wildly while Margaret holds her phone to her ear. I watch them from my window, 12 floors above, as they realize the depth of their miscalculation. At 11:30 a.m., I pour myself another coffee and open my laptop to check the server logs. The authentication requests have dropped to 0. Their platform is completely dead in the water. My phone buzzes with a text from someone in engineering. "Can you just bypass it?" I screenshot the message and forward it to Thomas with a note. "Evidence of willful patent infringement request." You can't bypass the foundation of a house when the foundation decides to leave. 48 hours later, the damage assessment reads like a disaster movie screenplay. Emergency contractors burn through $200,000 trying to build a replacement authentication system from scratch. The attempts fail spectacularly. They can recreate basic login functionality, but they can't replicate the proprietary risk-scoring algorithms covered by my patents. Tech industry blogs start picking up the story. When slides meet reality, how Zephyrstone's authentication crisis exposes platform fragility. The coverage is clinical, focused on the technical failure rather than the corporate drama, but the implications are clear to anyone who understands enterprise software. I spend my time documenting everything. Screenshots of error messages, server logs showing the authentication failures, records of my patent filings, copies of emails proving premeditation. Thomas calls it building the fortress, creating an unassailable legal position. The irony isn't lost on me. While they're scrambling to rebuild what I created, I'm doing what I always do. Methodical, precise work that will prove its value when tested. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., they have a public product launch event. 50 enterprise clients, venture capitalists, and technology reporters will gather in a downtown conference center to see their revolutionary collaboration platform demonstrated live. I set my alarm for 8:30 a.m. and prepare coffee for the morning show. The launch event streams live on their corporate website. I watch from my apartment, coffee mug in hand, as Margaret takes the stage in a navy blazer and practiced smile. The presentation slides are polished, the demo setup is professional, and the audience looks appropriately impressed. Today marks a new chapter in enterprise collaboration, she announces. Our platform combines security, scalability, and simplicity in ways that transform how teams work together. The demonstration begins smoothly. Single-user login, document creation, basic collaboration features, all the functionality they could cobble together with their emergency patches. But enterprise software isn't tested with single users in controlled environments. 20 minutes into the demo, Margaret invites the audience to try the guest access feature. Everyone can log in with the credentials in your welcome packet and experience our platform firsthand. 50 people open their laptops. 50 concurrent login attempts hit their fragile emergency authentication system simultaneously. The first sign of trouble is subtle. A slight delay in the login response that Margaret tries to cover with a joke about network connectivity. But the delays compound as the emergency system struggles with the load. Connection timeouts start appearing on laptops throughout the audience. By minute 25, half the audience can't log in at all. By minute 30, the demo laptop on stage starts displaying error messages. Margaret's practiced composure begins to crack as her assistant frantically tries to restart the failed services. "We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties," she says, her voice tight. "Perhaps we can move to the Q&A portion while our team resolves this." But there's no resolving it. The emergency authentication system, built in 48 hours by contractors who don't understand the business logic, collapses under the weight of real-world usage. The status page goes red, the mobile apps crash, and the collaboration platform returns nothing but HTTP 500 errors. The event ends 25 minutes early with Margaret promising to follow up individually with each client. The tech reporters in attendance start typing before they've even left the building. By afternoon, the headlines write themselves. Zephrstone launch crashes spectacularly under minimal load, and when enterprise software meets, reality, a case study in platform failure. I close my laptop and allow myself a small smile. Sometimes the best revenge is simply watching competence reveal itself. The emergency board meeting happens on a Friday afternoon. I know this because Thomas calls to tell me they've requested an expedited review of my patent claims, hoping to find some angle that invalidates my legal position. "They won't find one," he assures me. "Your documentation is airtight, and their own internal emails prove they knew about the patent issues before taking action." By Monday morning, the press release appears on the company website. Zephrstone announces leadership transition as company. Focuses on core technology development. Margaret Walsh has been released to pursue other opportunities. Sienna's strategic internship has quietly disappeared from the org chart. The stock price tells the rest of the story. Down 42% in a week as 3 major clients cancel their contracts and enterprise sales grind to a halt. The internal engineering report, leaked to TechCrunch within hours, traces the entire failure back to the authentication crisis and the subsequent system collapse. My phone starts ringing on Tuesday morning. Venture capitalists, compliance-focused enterprises, competitors who suddenly understand the value of robust authentication infrastructure. They all want the same thing: access to the technology that brought down a $200 million company. The first call comes from a healthcare startup that needs HIPAA-compliant authentication. The second from a financial services firm with regulatory audit requirements. The third from their biggest competitor, offering to license my patents for their own platform. By Thursday, I have term sheets from 3 different companies and a meeting scheduled with the venture capital firm that originally funded Zephrstone. They want to discuss opportunities in the enterprise security space. I sit in my apartment, looking out at the city skyline, and realize something has shifted. 2 weeks ago, I was a dismissed engineer whose contributions were being erased. Today, I'm the founder of Iron Vault Security with a $12 million Series A commitment and a pipeline of enterprise clients who understand the value of authentication that actually works. The irony is perfect. They wanted my code without me, but everyone else wants me with the code. 6 weeks later, Iron Vault Security occupies a modest office space in Soma with whiteboards covering every wall, just like the old Keller days. The difference is that now I own the whiteboards, the walls, and the vision for what we're building. Our first 3 clients represent everything Zephrstone tried to become: a regional bank that needs bulletproof authentication for their mobile app, a healthcare network with strict compliance requirements, and a government contractor whose security standards make enterprise software look like a toy. The technology stack is familiar but evolved. The same authentication framework that powered Zephrstone, now refined and hardened for clients who understand that security isn't a feature. It's the foundation everything else stands on. We've added automated compliance reporting, advanced threat detection, and fail-safe redundancy that makes the original system look like a prototype. I'm reviewing the latest security audit results when Thomas calls with an update on the Zephrstone situation. They've been acquired, he says. Consolidated Tech bought them for 40 cents on the dollar. They're rebuilding the entire platform on standard frameworks. Nothing proprietary, nothing innovative, just functional. And Margaret? Back to consulting. Though her reputation took a hit, Sienna left tech entirely. I hear she's in marketing now. Through my office window, I can see our first employee setting up her workstation, Lisa Kowalski, a security engineer from Google who decided that enterprise authentication was more interesting than ads optimization. We're hiring slowly, deliberately, looking for engineers who understand that reliability matters more than flash. My laptop chimes with a new email notification. Another potential client. This one a multinational corporation that needs authentication services for 50,000 employees across 12 countries. The kind of scale that requires not just good technology, but boring, reliable, absolutely dependable technology. I lean back in my chair, a proper Herman Miller Aeron, not some uncomfortable modern sculpture, and consider how much has changed. 2 months ago, I was building patches for other people's problems. Today, I'm building solutions for my own vision. Sometimes the best fight is simply taking your tools with you. The Zephrstone acquisition finalizes on a Tuesday morning that feels like any other day until Thomas calls with details that read like a corporate obituary. Consolidated Tech got the customer list, the office lease, and whatever IP they can salvage, he explains. They're keeping 12 of the original engineers and rebuilding everything from scratch. Standard OAuth implementation. Nothing fancy, nothing that requires patent licenses. It's exactly what you'd expect from a distressed asset sale. Strip away anything proprietary, replace innovation with industry standards, and hope the customers don't notice the difference. The new platform will work, but it won't be special. It'll be another generic enterprise collaboration tool in a market full of generic enterprise collaboration tools. Margaret's consulting firm issued a press release last week about her return to strategic advisory work. But the tech industry has a long memory for public failures. Word travels fast about executives who don't understand the technology they're selling, and Margaret's next role will likely be at a smaller firm with less ambitious clients. Sienna has disappeared from LinkedIn entirely. No updates, no new position, no trace of her brief career in tech. Sometimes the hardest lesson is learning that confidence without competence is just noise, and noise doesn't build sustainable careers. I close the call with Thomas and return to more interesting problems. Our healthcare client wants to expand their authentication system to include patient portal access, which means additional HIPAA compliance requirements and more rigorous audit trails. Our banking client is discussing acquisition of our entire platform for their subsidiary operations across 3 states. These are good problems to have. Complex, technical, valuable problems that require actual expertise to solve. The kind of problems that don't have shortcuts or emergency patches, only careful engineering and methodical testing. David Keller sends me an email that afternoon. Just a few lines. Heard about your new venture. Glad you shut the garage door instead of burning down the house. The industry needs more engineers who understand the difference between building and breaking. I print the email and pin it to the whiteboard in my office, right next to our first signed statement of work in the Iron Vault security business. License. Some validation comes from customers and investors, but the best validation comes from people who built things that mattered. The rain starts falling against my office windows. The same October weather that was falling the night Sienna called me boy and set everything in motion. But now I'm watching it from my own space, building my own systems, solving problems for clients who understand the value of authentication that works under pressure. 3 months into running Iron Vault Security, I've learned that success in enterprise software looks nothing like the startup mythology Silicon Valley loves to tell. There are no viral growth curves, no overnight breakthroughs, no dramatic pivots that save the company. There's just steady, boring, absolutely reliable work that gradually proves itself indispensable. Our first case study comes from the regional bank. Their previous authentication system failed audit requirements 3 times before they switched to our platform. Our system passed the audit on the first attempt, with scores high enough that their compliance officer called to verify the results. "I've never seen authentication logs this clean," she said. "It's almost suspicious how well everything works." That's the best compliment enterprise software can receive, suspicion that it works too well to be real. The healthcare network provides our second case study. Patient portal authentication that handles 50,000 login attempts per day without a single failure, with audit trails detailed enough to satisfy HIPAA investigators and simple enough that their help desk tickets dropped by 60%. Their CTO wants to license our technology for their internal employee systems as well. We're hiring our 3rd engineer next month, a former colleague from the Zephrstone days who reached out after seeing our work in the industry publications. Not someone fleeing a sinking ship, but someone who recognizes that authentic innovation happens in quiet offices with whiteboards and patient debugging, not in glass conference rooms with motivational posters about disruption. The government contractor engagement moves forward with typical government deliberation. Security clearance reviews, compliance audits, reference checks that go back 5 years. But their requirements are the kind that separate serious security companies from marketing-driven startups. Authentication systems that work during denial-of-service attacks, failover capabilities tested under combat conditions, encryption standards that satisfy NSA requirements. If we can build systems that pass government security reviews, enterprise clients become straightforward by comparison. I'm reviewing the latest penetration test results. All systems passed, 0 critical vulnerabilities, when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Heard about your company. Impressive work. Any interest in grabbing coffee? Margaret." I screenshot the message and forward it to Thomas with a note. Evidence that some people never learn boundaries. Then I delete the message and return to the penetration test report. Some conversations aren't worth having, especially with people who demonstrated their values when they held power. Success isn't about settling scores with the past. It's about building something better than what came before. My authentication framework now protects more sensitive data than it ever did at Zephrstone, serves more demanding clients, and operates under higher stakes. The technology is the same, but the context has transformed it from an internal tool to a legitimate business. The best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or public vindication. It's quiet competence that gradually makes all the noise irrelevant. The stress test begins at midnight on a Tuesday, when normal people are sleeping and enterprise software reveals its true character. I'm in the office with our 2 engineers, running Iron Vault's authentication platform through scenarios designed to break systems that look robust under normal conditions. 10,000 concurrent login attempts, 20,000, 50,000. The monitoring dashboard shows response times holding steady at sub-100 millisecond averages, error rates remaining at 0, database connections scaling smoothly across the load-balanced infrastructure. At 100,000 concurrent attempts, 10 times our largest client's peak usage, The system doesn't even strain. Memory usage stable, CPU utilization comfortable, network bandwidth well within capacity. The kind of boring reliability that makes enterprise customers write 5-year contracts. "This is almost disappointing," says Kevin, our newest engineer. "I was hoping to see something interesting fail." "Interesting failures happen to interesting systems," I reply. "Boring systems just work." My pager buzzes at 12:47 a.m. Not an alert about the stress test, those would show up on the monitoring dashboard, but a message from our answering service. Emergency contact request from a major bank whose authentication system just failed during their nightly batch processing. They need a replacement system operational by business hours, and they're willing to pay enterprise emergency rates for immediate implementation. I look at the stress test results on my screen, then at the pager message, then at Kevin and Lisa working through the test scenarios with the methodical patience of engineers who understand that reliability comes from testing everything that can break. "How fast can we deploy a new instance?" I ask. Lisa checks her deployment scripts. 20 minutes for a standard configuration, maybe 30 for banking compliance requirements. And documentation? Updated last week. Everything they need for integration testing. I think about the night 2 years ago when I was debugging security patches alone in an empty office while Sienna Walsh dismissed my work as fantasy football. About Margaret's glass desk and unsigned employment agreements and cease and desist letters delivered by courier. About authentication systems that collapse under 50 concurrent users and launch events that end in public humiliation. The path from dismissed engineer to successful founder isn't a straight line, but it's surprisingly logical. Build something valuable, protect your ownership, and let competence speak for itself. The market rewards authenticity eventually, even when individual companies don't. I reply to the page with confirmation. Iron Vault can have you operational in 4 hours. Sending contract terms now. My laptop chimes with another notification. The stress test has completed successfully. 100,000 concurrent authentication attempts, 0 failures, 0 downtime, 0 drama. Just the kind of boring excellence that makes enterprise software valuable. Sometimes the best fight is simply taking your tools with you. But sometimes the best victory is building something so fundamentally better that the fight becomes irrelevant, and everyone who needs real solutions knows exactly where to find them.